and I looked at the total income that the nation makes through taxes. Not just billions here. We're talking about possibly
trillions.
Yes.
Oh,
okay?
I'm sure it's multiple trillions.
Yes, multiple trillions of dollars. Now, are we only giving for maintenance?
Yeah.
Are we only giving so we have enough people in Congress to operate? Or are we giving to continue to progress and grow?
Yeah. I'm trying to figure out what the vision of our country even is these days. The government does provide goods and services, military, and they take care of the roads. But there's a lot of programs and things out there that the government also supports that, some people have some trouble with. Again, everybody has a problem with something. I'm sure if you look long enough, you would find somebody to say, I don't even like paved roads, or something. Somebody that would say that.
Let's go back to dirt. Hi, I'm Parker.
And I'm Tim.
And this is the Rage Podcast, where today we're going to discuss taxes.
Yes, one of the two inevitable things in life. The other one being death, and we'll talk about that some other time.
And what's the difference, really?
Yeah.
But anyways, and this is also tax season, and whatever that actually means. I'm no CPA, but tis the season, I guess.
I've had, and present company excluded, it wasn't anybody here, but I had 2 employees asking me questions about their income from last year on April 15th. So to everybody wait till the last minute, good on you. So
I just don't pay tax. I just don't pay tax.
Yeah. You're supposed to file those 2 weeks ago.
Whatever that means. Yeah. I'm still young, all right? Can I play the charges here? Anyways, taxes. And the good, the bad, and the ugly, I guess is what we're going to talk about today. So I was scrolling the news, and here comes an article that pops up. It's actually a scripture, all right? And it's stealing the widow's house, right? It's a reference in Luke, I do believe. And that was the title of the article. So I go in and I look at it, and it's this crazy situation that took place in Minnesota of a woman who was unable to pay property tax on, she was in a difficult situation, right? So she was a widow. She didn't feel comfortable living in the apartment that she was living in. So she left, didn't sell yet, okay? And she moved to a different part of the community or to a different city nearby still. And she could not afford to pay the property tax for both properties. So she let one just didn't pay the property tax. Then, so she forfeited the property, gave it over, they sold it, and normally, in a regular situation, they take back the property tax, right, out of that sale and would give you the rest of what's left of the money after the property tax was taken out. Not the case for this lady, and it goes on to this big spiral and out of control battle between government taxes and this poor widowed lady who, is really just going through something entirely ridiculous and terrible that's even happening. But taxes.
Yeah. Well, finish the story. They sold it for far more than the taxes were worth.
Exactly.
He forwarded me the story, and in fact, my question was, is this real? Yeah. And it turns out they sold it for far more than taxes were worth and kept it all, which I don't know what else to say about it.
So when the viewpoint already is of taxes by many, that it is stealing, that is theft, especially when it comes down to taking your property and never giving you any fraction of what the worth of the property was back.
Yeah.
They took all the sums of the money and...
Yeah, adding on penalties and all kind of different things. I firmly understand that it takes money to run organizations. Obviously, Parker and I both work for organizations, and they don't, we don't have a money printing machine in the basement. So we in our line of work, we look for donations from the congregation and different places. Well, that's it. There's no other income. We don't sell anything. And it's just, we exist because the people who love this organization, they love the church, they love God, want this organization to exist. The moment that dries up, this organization goes away in 3 weeks. That's all the farther out on a good time that we can pay our bills. So we live not week to week, but month to month certainly, and we exist because of the goodwill of the people who support us. Which is exactly how any organization that doesn't produce things, again, we are different from, say, Kroger or Walmart. They sell things for a profit. So and they can make adjustments and say, look, the employees cost this much and the lights cost this much and insurance and whatever else costs so much, so we have to charge X amount for products, and then the consumers can decide whether or not they want to pay that price.
We're not selling worship services.
That's right. Yeah, it's not like, oh, you didn't pay, your communion is going to be $200, I would never agree to that anyways. But so we exist simply because of the goodwill of the people who support us, because, again, we don't sell anything, much like the government. The government does provide goods and services, military, and they take care of the roads, and they take care of those kinds of things. But there's a lot of programs and things out there that the government also supports that, some people have some trouble with. Again, everybody has a problem with something. I'm sure if you look long enough, you would find somebody to say, I don't even like paved roads, or something.
Right.
Somebody that would say that.
Let's go back to dirt.
Yeah. What's wrong with dirt? So
I-75, but nothing but dirt.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, awesome is one way to look at it. But so obviously there are some things as a community we get together and say, we like paved roads. So they say, okay, a paved road and this paved road and that paved road is going to cost X amount. Somebody's got to pay for that, and the people who use them are the ones who pay for them.
Very true.
And that's feeding into the system. But what happens when you've got a bunch of things that we're paying for then that, maybe we have some questions about or have some difficulties with? What happens then? Those fees are still passed on to us. And some people have trouble with that.
And what happens when you look at, I actually did a research paper once in high school, and I looked at the total income that the nation makes through taxes. Okay? Mm-hmm. It's a lot of money. I can't remember the exact number.
I'm sure it's, yeah.
A lot of money goes through all the taxes and everything else, all of your federal taxes. Tons and tons and tons, all right? So when I'm talking about this, we're talking about not just billions here. We're talking about possibly
trillions.
Yes.
Oh,
okay?
I'm sure it's multiple trillions.
Multiple trillions of dollars. All right, and now our nation has problems with money a lot of times.
Because we have all these taxes come in, yet we're still borrowing money to pay the bills.
No matter what, the taxes are continuing to get pulled out, all right? That's not going to stop, yet our money is getting spent in probably some iffy ways because the nation's, how many trillion in debt are we?
Yeah, a bunch of trillions.
So, my willingness to give taxes and knowing that it will go for the greater good of the civilization I'm a part of really dwindles quickly. And I think this also happens in churches, okay? Say a church starts spending some money in some willy-nilly ways. Tim, what's an example we could give here?
Here's an example. Decide, all right, what we really need? Well, here's what Wayne Street really needs. We need to have a garage door that opens directly into the sanctuary. Wouldn't you think that'd be helpful?
I actually agree.
Yeah. So we get together and we decide, all right, it's going to cost us X thousands of dollars to, take out this old stained glass window, because who wants that anyways? We're going to have a garage door right there that opens up. Okay? People may start coming in and going, I don't know that I wanted to go to church in a garage. I'm not sure that's what I wanted to do. And so I'll tell you exactly what will happen. Those tithes and offerings will dry up in a hurry, because people will say, if that's the way you're spending my money to take out the beautiful stained glass and put a garage door there, we're gonna have some problems with that.
Exactly.
And there's plenty of other things we could say. Somebody may come along and say, I don't think we should pay Parker $8 million a year to do his job, and that may be a little extravagant. Yeah. And so, unless we're going to do something about Parker or expect more work out of him, $8 million worth of work. I'm not going to pay that anymore. And people have a direct say in how that works. And I can't go to somebody and say, well, you can't come here anymore because, you're not giving or whatever. It just doesn't work. What we have to do is cut accordingly and belt tighten accordingly.
And see, even though, go back to the example. So we're nonprofit organizations,
correct,
right? That's how we operate.
Yes.
Technically, we could not. The government's not necessarily the exact same boat as a church, but
very similar.
Fairly similar.
Yeah.
We'll go back to Kroger. All right, Kroger. If they
for-profit.
is a for-profit organization, and say they decided we are no longer going to sell in Kroger this, go Kellogg cereal, right?
Okay.
Go Fruit Loops, right?
Yep.
My favorite cereal.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Fruit Loops,
yes.
all the way, man.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They stopped selling it. I'm going to stop going to Kroger.
Yeah, that's it. We're done with Fruit Loops. No Fruit Loops. No sales.
Even if Kroger starts doing things willy-nilly, all right, and going crazy, I'm going to say willy-nilly a lot throughout this episode.
I'm noticing that.
But anyways, if Kroger starts doing something crazy like taking away Fruit Loops, they're going to lose profit in the long run because they're going to irritate people.
Yes.
They're going to tick people off.
Especially us.
Now, difference between that and how the church works, okay? Because we actually are more similar with Kroger in that situation, because say we start doing something crazy, we're going to lose church either attendance, and through attendance, we're going to lose offering.
Yeah, an example, say, you know what, we should start doing churches on Tuesdays. Sunday, there's sports going on and stuff, and let's have church on Tuesday. Well, you know what, if people aren't happy with that, guess what's going to go away? And that's tithes and offerings again. Because we can't say we have to do everything to please every person, because God knows that's impossible. But we have to be able to have a range that we can go into, and give not necessarily. This is gonna sound bad. I don't mean always give the people what they want, but there has to be some give and take. Sometimes we have to push people and say, you need to serve, you need to grow, you need to do discipleship, and people may not be all on fire to go do that all the time. But at the same time, we don't need to be aggravating people. I'll use your word. We don't need to be aggravating people by making dumb decisions like, saying we're gonna have church on Tuesday, or we need a garage door in the sanctuary. Those are things that are hard to justify, and people are gonna see that. Now, if we come along and say, now here's the decision we have to do, probably need to heat the building over the winter. Most people are gonna be like, yeah, I can see that. That's pretty good. Because we have justified the expense. Nobody wants to go into the church where there's frost on the pew, okay? That seems pretty reasonable to, I think, the vast majority of people. So in order to do that, then people will say, yes, I will support that. And then they will vote with their faithfulness in giving. And that's the kind of thing we need to do.
So, back to the taxes.
Okay.
The government can do whatever willy-nilly thing they want with the money that they're receiving, right?
Willy-nilly.
And what is also different about what's going on with the government is we are forced to pay that money, all right?
That's the difference.
That's the difference. Now, it's a horrible situation, and this is why, actually, the entire creation of the nation was formed behind the hatred of government.
Yes. Yeah, ever heard of the Boston Tea Party?
But in reality, how do we manage that as Christians, all right? We are forced to pay this amount of money to go to things that we necessarily don't always understand, all right? Whether it be, obviously when we see our roads getting fixed, we recognize that, the roads are getting fixed. Yep. I probably gave in a couple dollars here and there to fix the road.
Yeah, that 2 feet of pavement was provided by me, yes.
Good, right? Yeah, fine, dandy, wonderful. But on the larger scale of things that are going on the government as a whole, all 50 states together in our governing body, we can become very easily irritated, especially when we recognize that we are forced to give.
Yeah, when we hear about things that our money is going to support, and we go, I'm just not sure about that. I have questions about that. We don't have a recourse to say, well, I'm going to keep my taxes.
And here's where the big difference between government and church comes into play. Government forces you to give money, and they get to do whatever they want with the money. All right, we don't really have a say necessarily. We can vote on certain things to give our money to.
And what that does is the government is under no obligation to cast a vision for our country. That's the problem.
Yes. So the government can take the money and technically, really, in all reality, do whatever they want with it. Okay. Now, the church. The church does not force you to give any money. Now, that's not to say that there is a command that goes for tithing and giving, right?
Yes, because you're supporting the work of the Lord.
That's a necessity. But we're not holding a gun to anyone's head or prison time. Okay. So, with the church, we give you this option. If you give, we're going to tell you exactly where the money is going. All right, it's either going to go. We just had the capital campaign, right? It's going to go to do the roof or the windows, right? Yep. That's where your money's going.
Yep.
And this, in the church also, you can write a check saying, I want to give money to specifically, the capital campaign, for example.
We have another example, the ARC project, where we're giving animals to the heifer project. You can give directly to that.
Yeah. Yes. So you can give directly, and you still get through the command of giving, right? You're doing all those things. Yet, we see this great more sense of purpose when we give without being forced, don't we? When we're
There's
giving
a fulfillment to that.
When we're giving to the church windows or roof, you're more like, yeah, the church needs a windows and roof, right? That's an important thing. So I'm going to give to that, and you're going to feel good about yourself knowing.
And you're going to see the workers here working and know that you were the responsible for that. Yeah.
And you're going to get this feeling of saying, all right, now the church that I've grown up in has a better longevity, at least knowing they have a roof over their heads, right? That's important. Government, you're forced to pay these taxes. And you don't really know where they're going. You don't really see exactly where they're going. You know that probably something, if the roads are getting fixed, you could say that, but you don't really know where your money is going. You just know it's being sent to the state, to the city, to the government, and so forth. And you hate it.
Because you have no right to say, no say in this. You're apportioned this money. It is assigned to you, and you don't get any say in it. And that's why everyone is unhappy to pay it, because yes, we agree there are some things that we need, obviously, and we need to come together as a civilization or as a nation to provide, and as a state and as a county and as a city and as a whatever, we need to come together and take care of these things. But the issue is we sometimes feel detached from that, where suddenly the government becomes this bottomless pit of money, which is why we all can pay all these taxes. And yet we have to have arguments about the debt ceiling because we still need to borrow to pay it all off. Something's got to give in there somewhere. We cannot keep living this way. Someday somebody's going to have to pay all this back. God bless our children. God bless Parker Miley, who's going to have to work till he's 150 years old.
And it's never going to be given out of out of the purpose that taxes, I believe, in going all the way back to the start of the nation. Taxes were a great thing.
Yeah,
I would say.
Actually, the history of taxes is there was no income tax until the Civil War. And the reason that was instituted was so that we could pay the Union soldiers to fight the war. That's what the purpose was, and then rebuild the country after it was over. That's where it began, and people did that in order to support the war effort.
But going all the way back to the early days and ages of America, and when we pay taxes, as is not just an custom here in America. Obviously, it's a worldwide thing that everyone faces. Yet, in the beginning, taxes were given saying, yes, we have a bright and great future ahead of us.
Yep.
Yet now, we're giving taxes. And I don't think we have that same motivation anymore of looking at this bright future ahead of us.
Well, that's because it's sort of nebulous as to what's happening to him, as you've clearly said. Abraham Lincoln had to go out and make a case to begin, a federal income tax, because he had to cast a vision to say, we're doing this so that we can come together as one nation under God and all these different things. We can't do that without some kind of
support.
Support. Community support, yes. Yeah. And that's what they were looking for, and that he had to cast a vision. Everybody had to understand that. Well, I don't know that we understand that. I'm trying to figure out what the vision of our country even is these days. Again, and we're not going to say any names. We're specifically not saying the name of any politicians here. But a few politicians have thrown their hat in the ring for the next president. They're supposedly casting a vision for what they want to do. And all I have heard is why you don't want to vote for anybody else. That's all I've heard. I don't know what there is about you. And again, this is both sides. And I don't know what there is about you that inspires me to go out and cast a ballot for you, because all you're telling me is what you're trying to be against. Honestly, yeah, being against things is good, but I don't care as much about that. I want to know what you're going to do. I'm not paying you to be against something. I'm not paying you to stop something. I'm paying you to do something, and I'm going to cast into that.
But in the church, all right, using these as two parallel examples, right? In the church, you give and you can see something. Where the pastor, the board are always setting visions of what's going to happen. The new roof, with this, will maintain our building for years. That's obviously an easy one. But even talking about hiring someone new on staff. Yeah. All right, well, you're going to have to really sell, if you're going to have to pay someone, on staff, talking as church staff, you have to really sell yourself and say, why is this going to be a value to our congregation in our church, because the church pays for us the salary. Same thing goes for politicians. Same thing goes for the everything. When are we going to get to understand? We've lost this purpose, I think, of even in our government, of trying to figure out the real meaning of taxes, right? Taxes didn't used to be this great, monstrosity that it was.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about not like 50 years ago. I'm talking about hundreds of years ago when America was finally in its early stages saying this is going to be a great nation and we're going to do all these wonderful things and we need some support. So will you give? And we were, I'm not going to say we're not great now, but and that success came. Yet now we give. And are we only giving for maintenance?
Yeah.
Are we only giving so we have enough people in Congress to operate? Or are we giving to continue to progress and grow?
Yeah, that's a sales pitch I'd like to hear. I'd like to hear somebody come along and talk to me about entitlement programs and all these different things that we're paying for. All these entitlement programs that are out there. Come along and sell me on that. Explain it to me. How is it a good thing to have them? I don't hear anybody, I hear people saying we're obligated to. Well, great. I'm obligated to do a lot of things I don't want to pay for. But at the same time, come along and make the sales pitch. Explain to me why that's a good thing, because if it's not, then we need, or if we can't make that sales pitch, then we need to come along and decide what we want to do with it then.
Because Christians recognize, and this is also very important to recognize, money is a gift, all right? And this goes all the way back to the foundations of our faith, actually. In the very beginning, we work to keep a living, right? That's been taught for years, all right? That's a very Judeo-Christian principle, right? And that gift, all right, the tolls of your labor, you receive those gifts, and that gift is not just from your employer, but it is a gift from God, because God's given you the ability to work. Therefore, He's
made you a steward of it. You are responsible for it.
Therefore, the reapings that you get from working and being able to do those things comes from God. So, what are we going to do with this gift, the stewards of the money that we've been given? Or how do we stay conscious of it?
Yeah.
Why am I continuing to give these things to such awful institutions? If we don't wake up and kind of recognize, where are my taxes going?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's one thing I'm praying for this next election cycle. Again, regardless what happens, is I hope somebody steps up to the plate, and I haven't heard it yet. Maybe it's coming, and puts forth a vision. Here's what we're trying to do. Here's something to be excited to pay for. Honestly, I could be excited about building roads and fixing roads. I could be excited about that, but you can't bury that under a bunch of other stuff that is difficult for me to get behind.
Yeah, you can't say this much is going for paying for roads, so we're getting new roads, but then this stack over here is just floating in some realm of politics.
And this is where voting becomes very important, and that's why casting a vision of people we're potentially voting for is so very important, because it's in that voting process that we get a say. So if one person casts a vision that says this, and one person says this, I would say my money and my blood, sweat, and tears, I want to go in whichever direction this is, and vote for that person. Whereas if somebody comes along and says, vote for me because I'm not them, and again, both parties are guilty of this right now.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Nobody's excited about that, and paying taxes becomes a drag and a half, to say the least. So
I guess today's episode is a call to remove some of that just natural rhythm that we get in of saying, oh, well, this person hates that person, and I hate that person too. Especially as we're getting into another season of voting and campaigning
we're saying
and all
that
these
even
things.
though we're 2 years out from the election.
Well, the season begins now.
Yeah.
And, also recognizing, the fact that when we give these taxes, it really should be done out of a patriotic spirit of wanting the best for your nation, and recognize that when you're giving and those come out of your paycheck, that it's supposed to go to something good, even though we don't necessarily see it and we don't necessarily know that it is going to something good. That was the genuine purpose, was to unite a nation, to come together and saying, we're going to do this not as individuals, but as, again, what makes us connected is the nation that we are under. This nation probably wouldn't be here if it wasn't for a lot of taxes.
Yeah. So the bottom line is this. If you want someone to support something with their prayers, their presence, their gifts, and their service, which is what our nation wants, it's what our churches want, it's what all organizations want. If you want that, cast a vision. Say, here's what we're going to do. I couldn't care less what you're against. I want to know what you're going to do. Nobody's excited about, yes, we're not doing this. Tell us what's happening, what's going to happen. If we invest in whatever vision you're trying to convince us of, if you're trying to get us to support that, then what's going to happen? What direction are we going? Sure, we may not make it, we may fail, but what way are we going? Because I couldn't be less interested anymore of what you're against. I couldn't care less. And to define ourselves based on what we're against doesn't do anything but make me not care. just to be honest with you.
Very, very true.
Yeah.
Very true. Perfectly
That's
said.
pretty profound. So, hey, thanks for joining us for the Raise Podcast. And go get a vision, because for lack of vision, people perish. Have a great day, everybody.